So, I just got into seeing Alex Garland's brand new film, Civil War. This is a film that obviously depicts a modern-day American Civil War, conveniently being released in an election year, when we are as divided as we have ever been since our actual Civil War here. Great timing, and honestly, great movie. This movie's a masterpiece. I saw the movie about 2 hours ago. I've been just kind of thinking about my thoughts here. I've been rattling around my thoughts in my head of how to actually talk about this movie, and sort of how to explain a lot of what I enjoyed about this movie without spoiling certain aspects of it. I just want to get this review right, so be a little patient with me. I just kind of want to go through my thoughts and really speak them out loud for the first time in this review, so I'm going to kind of organize it that way. So Civil War is a movie that follows 4 journalists as they make their way across America during a modern-day Civil War. This is a civil war between multiple different fronts, but mainly it is Washington, D.C. against Texas and California, which have unified as the Western forces. Now, why all these sides are at war, what's actually going on, that is never actually specified to the audience. Something that I can understand why a lot of people going into this movie might be disappointed in. You get little glimpses, you get little ideas and references, but nothing in this movie is ever, certainly told to the audience, this is what caused the Civil War, this is what each side is fighting for, this is how the government is structured, and this is why this is all happening. It's never said. You're left to sort of figure it out by yourself because that is not the point of the story. The point is following these 4 journalists as they document the war and what is going on in the country all the way to the end. And through their journey in America, we get to see some of the most brutal war-type film stuff I have ever seen in a movie ever. There are some really, really brutal, terrifying and suspenseful scenes throughout that feel like they're coming from a post-apocalyptic show or movie, more so than a film about an actual war here. I legitimately thought this felt like The Last of Us through different parts. That's kind of what I felt like I was watching, this weird journey through this destroyed version of America where everybody and everything is just a danger and a possible death for the characters here. And who are those characters? Well, we have 4 main characters in this movie, and all 4 of these actors came to absolutely play. They are all incredible. Main character here is Kirsten Dunst, who plays this war journalist who's been covering wars pretty much her entire life. She has seen it all of the bad, all of the terrible, and now she's here covering war at her home, the last thing she ever wanted to see, but she's just kind of at this point in life where she's just, her job has consumed her. You could see throughout this movie, Kirsten Dunst's performance, I could see a lot of people in other reviews saying that she's a little bit dull, a little boring, but I think that's kind of the point. This character is broken. She is a broken, destroyed human being who is devoid of any emotion, and there's an arc that plays out with that character and sort of her coming back throughout the film that I think a lot of people might have missed, but she is such a rock star in this movie, Kirsten Dunst. Then you have Wagner Moura, who plays Joel, one of the other reasons this movie reminded me of The Last of Us. He's another war journalist who's a little more upbeat, he's a little more fun, but he's also got his traumas, he's also got his problems that he goes with throughout the movie. He is a very fun character, a light-hearted piece of this core 4 characters that we have, and he was excellent here. You also have Cailee Spaeny. This is my favorite performance of her. She plays this overly ambitious journalist who's just getting her start in the industry, and she joins up with this group, and she might be in over her head. Her character is literally the heart of this movie, I think. I think she's the audience. She is supposed to kind of represent the audience, strapping along on this unknown journey, not really knowing what she's going to see or where it's going to take us. This is my favorite performance from Cailee Spaeny, I think, ever. I think this is better than Priscilla, although somehow it shouldn't be. I feel like on paper, this character is extremely simple, and it shouldn't overtake a much more complex character like Priscilla, but Cailee Spaeny just does so much with actually selling the trauma of the war and the situations that are happening within each scene that it's just so believable. She's so good here. And finally, Stephen McKinley is also such a star in this film. He doesn't get to do as much as the other 3, but he is yet again another heart piece of this movie. He also has some funny quips throughout the whole thing. He was great, and I love seeing him in everything. Some other standouts in the cast, Jesse Plemons. I mean, you've seen him in the trailers. There is one scene with him where just from the trailer alone, you could tell what you're getting. Jesse Plemons is playing a classic Jesse Plemons type character. He's terrifying. That scene is one of the most suspenseful and utterly terrifying movie scenes I have seen in so long. It is unbelievable, and Jesse Plemons completely carries it on his shoulders. He is unbelievable. Nick Offerman also plays the president, this kind of corrupt dude that we don't really know why he's corrupt. We don't really know why he's the way he is, but we know he's probably a dick, and Nick Offerman does that well. Most of the movie, it's just a voice. You just hear him talking, and he does it well enough to say, you know what? That guy probably, yeah, he probably caused a civil war in America, didn't he? And speaking about the president, I really want to get into what the whole point of this movie was. Alex Garland, who, by the way, is one of my favorite filmmakers, one of my favorite screenwriters, made this movie as sort of a warning, I believe, not just to America, but pretty much the entire world, to stop sort of, I don't want to just say divide people. I don't think this movie's just a classic war is bad message, although that's what a lot of this movie is. It's trying to tell the audience that war is bad. But I think the point of this movie was to inform the audience and tell the audience to stop taking politics and divisions, not just within America, but within everywhere, and polarizing it to the point where something like this is possible. Is what happens in this movie possible, especially this year, in an election year, in our current environment? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's a very realistic movie in that sense. But a lot of the violence you see in the movie, the violence that's not just pushed by belief, but sometimes pushed by animalistic tendencies in humans, that is stuff that's possible, and a lot of that can be triggered by polarization within our politics, and Alex Garland does a very, very smart thing in this movie by not choosing a side in this whole thing. Obviously, when this movie was announced and the marketing started, I think everybody assumed what this movie was going to be. I think everybody assumed a Civil War movie coming from Hollywood where the president is the bad guy. We all kind of assumed the president would be played by Alec Baldwin, and he would come out looking like this. The Western forces of Texas and California are gay. And you know, it would be Hollywood's classic message. Orange man bad, if you voted for him, you're racist, right? That's what Hollywood has been saying forever. Alex Garland's point in this movie is, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to have Jim Carrey come out as playing a fake Joe Biden and have him be the bad guy. I am not going to pin this war and this situation in this movie on one of our real-life political sides. Because if I did that, it would be completely removing the point of the movie. The point of the movie is to stop doing that, is to stop polarizing audiences, stop polarizing politics, and stop dividing people based on their political beliefs. That is the entire point of this film, and I find it so funny that I have read so many bad reviews on this movie from people that were upset about that were upset that they didn't make the bad guys in this movie, or the good guys, one political side, and that it didn't choose a moral side of politics. And because of that, Alex Garland succeeded. I think those bad reviews are a factor of success for Alex Garland, because he showed exactly what he wanted to show with this movie, that people would get mad at it for just simply not taking a side. There's a great scene in the movie, it's in the trailer, not a spoiler, but there's a scene where they head into this town, and the town is normal. They're like so close to the war, but you would never know there's a war going on. And they have a conversation with somebody in the town. Don't you guys know there's a big civil war going on? And they go, we saw it on the news. We just don't want to get involved. It doesn't seem good for us. And that's kind of like what Alex Garland is kind of presenting here, of not just the journalist, but how everybody should be. It's like, you see what all the terribleness going on? Maybe we should just not do that. Stay chill, open a nice little town, let people shop and try on dresses. Because of this movie ends up being so much more presentable to an audience. If this movie had just been Orange Man Bad, Nick Offerman's playing a fake, stand-in for Donald Trump, let's just say it, that's what I think everybody assumed this movie was going to be, well, then guess what? Half of the audience would have been completely alienated and would have hated this movie. This movie probably would have been a failure. Same way as if they did it the other side. Alex Garland instead decided to make a movie that was a warning to everybody, a message to everybody, and also just a really damn good movie that represents journalists in war, something that hasn't really been covered in film, by using a fictional war in our country that sends an alternative message of A, war is bad, B, polarizing politics is also atrocious. And also, that humans kind of fucking suck. There's another movie that just kind of displays what humans will do when they are put in a desperate situation like this, in a warlike situation. I compare this movie to something like The Purge. This is the best Purge movie ever made, because it's kind of a similar situation. You have a world that's lawless. You have a country that is just free reign. People are just doing crazy shit, and people have kind of become desensitized. The journalists have become desensitized, like Kristen Dunst's character, whereas some people haven't, like Kaylee Spaney. She is not desensitized to stuff throughout the film, so we see her raw reactions. But to see some of the people throughout the movie and what they do, the decisions they make, and how desensitized to the evil they are, that is another point this film wanted to pull across, is that when you completely polarize something and you bring people so far onto one side of their beliefs, they will have such little care for the other side that they will overlook evil. And that's what this film kind of becomes. And they do such a good job of doing it. A majority of this movie that you're watching, and you're watching these battles and these fights, you're not even watching the main sides of the armies. You're not watching the American DC army and the Western forces fight. That's like not what 90% of this movie is. You're watching different like militias and random groups of people throughout America doing different things, and it's never specified to the audience who exactly these people are. You're just left to assume who they are. And most of the time, your assumption is that these are just random people. There's a great scene, it's also in the trailer, and it happens about in the middle part of the movie, where they come across these snipers, and the journalists start asking the snipers, who are you shooting at? Who are you aiming at? And the snipers are like, we don't really know. We don't really know if they're bad, if they're on our side. We have no idea. All we know is that they're shooting at us, they're trying to kill us, and we are trying to kill them. And the journalists just keep asking questions, and, the snipers, in much worse words than I'm going to use on YouTube, say, are you stupid? Like, what don't you get about the situation? They're trying to kill us, we need to kill them. Like, come on, it's simple. And that's the whole point of this movie. It's like, this two sides doesn't really matter. They're just two sides trying to kill each other. These journalists are trying to cover it, and that's the movie. Now that I got all that out, like, can we talk about the actual action in this movie? This movie depicts some of the best war sequences I think ever put to film. They are gritty, they are hardcore, they are brutal, and they are filled to the brim with suspense. These are some of the most suspenseful scenes in a war movie I have ever seen. I was sitting on the edge of my seat the entire time. The use of sound, how sometimes the sound will completely cut out and then cut back in with like a jump scare and a big moment. Insane. The music in this movie, the choices, where they were spread throughout, were so meticulously planned and brilliantly used. This movie is brutally violent, and the imagery and its violence in its action scenes, especially in that third act, not only help depict the message the film is trying to say, but it also helps to just kind of stun the audience. And this film is hard to watch at times. There are times that you're seeing people get shot, and people celebrating shooting people, and it's just like, wow, something about this, especially knowing these are Americans shooting other Americans, it's just icky to see. It's gross. Seeing mass graves of bodies and just some of the other terrible things you get to see in this film, oh, it's so bad, but just it works so well for the story they were trying to plant here. Listen, I can gush about this movie forever. I have a feeling throughout this year, as we make the top 10 lists, of the halfway point of the year, top 10 lists at the end of the year, probably going to make an Alex Garland ranked video. I'm going to have a lot of time to talk about this movie, because it's going to be making every one of those lists. This is definitely, by the end of the year, going to be one of the best films of the year, if not the best. I still think Dune Part 2 is a little bit ahead, but we'll see. Civil War is a miraculous accomplishment of filmmaking. It's Alex Garland's, one of his best films, if not his best film. It's so sad that this might be Alex Garland's last directed movie. I completely get the reasons why. He just wants to go be a screenwriter, with the anxiety, the having to work with people. I get it, trust me. But if this is his last film and the last film he's gonna direct, mic drop. That's what this film is. It's a freaking mic drop, because this is a movie made by a master filmmaker who both understands how to build an entertaining thriller just at its surface level, how to write interesting characters, but also how to build one of the most meta themes in the world that even the people that disliked the movie are helping to further the theme of the film. I've seen some bad reviews that are listing some actual arguments. I'm not going to say every bad review for this movie is just stupid. It's just people that didn't get it. But go read some of the bad reviews of this movie. There's people complaining that the film, didn't depict the president as Donald Trump. It's crazy. It just proves the polarization in our real world. It's some of the most insane shit I've seen. So is this movie a teaser for 2025 after this year's election? No. Come on, guys. It's probably not. Maybe. Probably. I guess we'll see. This is a weird question I had with the movie. I don't know if this is... I'm going to say this at the end, because I don't know if this is spoilers. I guess if people had certain expectations for the movie, maybe it is. So if you don't want to hear the spoiler, give me one... Let me give you the rating first. I'm going to give Civil War a 5 out of 5, if that wasn't clear already from the whole video. Yeah, it's a 5 out of 5. But just quick question about the movie. If you definitely want to, completely get clear of spoilers, you can leave now. What happened to the nukes, right? There's a part in this movie where I thought they were getting to... They were about to get into the fact that the president's like, hey, if you keep coming through this area, I'm going to hit the button and we're going to shoot off some nukes. So maybe we should negotiate here. And obviously that's not what happens in the movie. So I'm just wondering why, how does that happen? That's one of the things that makes a real-life civil war in this country kind of not possible because at some point, if the president was cornered, he's got the nukes. The states, the National Guards in the states, because that's what a civil war would be. It would be National Guard for multiple different states versus the federal, army. That's what a civil war in modern day, it's the only way it could ever happen. The federal army would be in control of the nuclear weapons, not the National Guard. So there really couldn't be a war unless you had a president who was just morally like, I'm never going to nuke anybody. But this president's kind of presented in a way where the morals aren't really there, and he probably would have and should have used a nuke if he wanted to win. Interesting question. I wonder. I would love to ask Alex Garland. I think that's one of those things where Alex Garland was probably like, if I put in nukes, the plot can't go to where I want it to go, so we're just gonna ignore the nukes. There's enough nuke stuff out there. Go watch Fallout. This video, guys. What do you guys think of Civil War? Let me know down below. I will see you guys in the next video.